Back to school time is when many families first recognize the signs of sensory issues in their kids, noticing they're easily overwhelmed by transitions and new environments and struggle to stay calm and regulated. Sadly, these sensory struggles aren't just for a few families here and there. As of today, 1 in 6 kids with sensory processing disorder have various challenges each and every day. Their nervous system struggles to filter and regulate normal input, leaving them in a constant state of sensory overload. And sadly, pediatricians often dismiss parents' concerns, saying it's just a phase. But the truth is, early intervention is crucial for children with SPD to thrive. And even more importantly, those interventions must address the root cause of sensory processing disorder and not just recommend workarounds that may be helpful but not sustainable. So, like we mentioned before, sensory processing disorder affects a staggering 1 in 6 children, with numbers continually rising. Despite the prevalence, SPD is frequently overlooked or misunderstood by healthcare providers. While SPD often co-occurs with autism spectrum disorder, they are distinct conditions. Children with sensory challenges may exhibit age-appropriate skills in some areas while struggling with pronounced sensory-based difficulties in others. So, up first, the most common signs of sensory processing disorders in kids. Some things you might not know are actually sensory processing disorder problems. So, oversensitivity to touch, types of clothing, sounds, smells, lights, and trying new foods. And this can lead to discomfort with certain textures, avoidance of being touched, or distress when clothing feels too tight or itchy, as well as covering ears in response to normal sounds, fear of loud noises like vacuum cleaners, sirens, or alarms. Then you have sensory seeking input. They're constantly touching objects, seeking strong tactile sensations, or engaging in rough play. So then you have the opposite. You have avoiding sensory input. They're avoiding activities that involve physical contact, such as hugging or being distressed by activities like haircuts or teeth brushing. They can have difficulty with fine motor skills, challenges with tasks such as buttoning clothes, using utensils, or writing. And then they have difficulty with gross motor skills, problems with activities like, running, jumping, or riding a bike. They can have issues with balance and coordination issues. So they might frequently trip, fall, or appear clumsy. Bumping into objects in the house, doorways, things like that. Which leads to poor body or spatial awareness. Definitely know where their body is in space, which leads to bumping into objects or people. These are the kids who have a lot of bruises or always at that doorway on the way out or the coffee table, things like that. They can get very overwhelmed in crowded places. Distress or anxiety in crowded environments like malls, parks, or parties. And they have difficulty transitioning between activities. So this is usually when you have meltdowns or anxiety when they change from one activity to another, moving between different environments. They have a hard time adapting to the change. You have emotional outbursts. So then you have frequent tantrums or meltdowns in response to sensory overload or frustration. It's just too much for them, and they have these meltdowns. They also have difficulty self-calming. They can be struggling to soothe themselves when upset, often needing external help to calm down. Then you have the opposites of hyperactivity or inactivity, being excessively active or lethargic, depending on the sensory input they seek or avoid. This one's a big one for parents. Difficulty sleeping, trouble falling asleep or staying asleep due to sensory sensitivities. They have poor attention span, they have difficulty focusing on tasks, and they're easily distracted by sensory stimuli. That squirrel thing. Any little shiny thing, noise, whatever can pull them off. A lot of repetitive behaviors. They engage in repetitive motions or actions as a way to self-soothe or manage the sensory input that's coming in. So let's talk about what's really going on with the nervous system in sensory processing disorder. So sensory processing is a three-part process. So first, you have the sensory input coming in through the sensory nerves and sensory aspect of the spinal cord. They're reading information from both the internal, inside your body, and external environment around you. Then second, the brain and the central nervous system must process or interpret sensory information and determine what is important to pay attention to and react to. And then also, what is not important and should be filtered out or essentially ignored. And then third, the brain and nervous system then send the information and what are called actions or impulses out to the various parts of the brain and body to react and respond to the incoming sensory input. Now, when the sensory nerve pathways into the brain and nervous system are altered and interfered with, the brain and nervous system then receive bad information. And that in turn leads to poor decision making or interpretation, because you're not getting the right information in there. It's a lot of confusion. And finally, bad or inappropriate actions and outputs as a result of this bad information and improper processing or interpretation of the sensory information. So the true take-home point here, it's a neurosensory communication and connection problem called subluxation. I'll say it again, subluxation, or nervous system dysregulation. Now, once you understand subluxation and nervous system dysregulation, then parents can truly understand what the root cause of sensory processing disorder is. So let's talk about why sensory issues and subluxation are so hard to find and make sense of. So first off, traditional pediatricians and medical doctors do not have a good understanding of sensory processing disorder and neurosensory function as a whole. Second, no traditional medical testing or even movement-based therapies like PT and OT know how to find and detect subluxations and nervous system dysregulation in this way. So, while the root cause of sensory processing disorder may escape most common medical diagnosing testing, our neurological insight scans are literally designed to find subluxation, nervous system dysregulation, and dysfunction, and to help parents see with their own eyes exactly what's causing their child's frequent tantrums, meltdowns, and sensory difficulties. So, if you feel like you've done months or even years of OT and made all sorts of sensory workarounds part of your normal everyday life, and you just want things to be easier and less modified for your child and your family, you need to learn more about exactly how neurologically focused chiropractic care works. So, this form, a specialized form of chiropractic care that we provide at Vanella Chiropractic here in Virginia Beach, can do so much for kids struggling with sensory issues. Can help your child and whole family get back to the easier, calmer, more consistent quality of life of chiropractic care. To learn more about or schedule an appointment, simply visit a link in our bio, leave us a comment, or send us a DM to get connected with one of our care advocates right away.